Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And today we've got another movie request, and it is for the 1987 film The Gate. Here is your trivia question for today. Every time Glenn mentions Angus the dog's age, what age does he say he is? The answer will be at the end of this video. So our film starts off with Glenn, who is waking up from a bad nightmare where he apparently climbed up into his treehouse and then it was struck by lightning and fell down. When he wakes up, though, apparently a storm has actually taken out the tree and the treehouse. We soon find out that Glenn's parents are actually leaving for the weekend, and they're leaving his sister Al in charge. Glenn takes the opportunity to have his best friend Terry stay overnight. So the two of them decide that it's a great idea if they go digging in the hole that the tree left when it was knocked over. What they find in the hole is a rock, but within it is a geode. They eventually manage to break it open, but when they do, a weird light and some sort of gas emits from this. The geode somehow leaves some weird writing on the magic slate toy that belongs to Glenn. And of course, because Glenn and Terry are children, they decide to read it out loud. Now, while all of that is going on, Al has decided, of course, to be rebellious and have a teenage party at her house since her parents aren't home. Now, this is where things start to get really weird. Glenn gets levitated, Angus the dog passes away, weird imagery begins to start showing up, tiny little minion demons appear, and a massive hole in the middle of the floor that leads to the underworld also shows up. So, will this group of kids that are only armed with some knowledge that they gained from a heavy metal record be able to stop this from happening? Or is everything too far gone? The director for this film is Tibor Takas. When The Gate first released, it went up against Ishtar, which that movie had a great opening weekend. Unfortunately for Ishtar, it received some horrible reviews right afterwards, and then more and more people just kept going to see The Gate instead. A film that had a budget of 6 million ended up grossing 13 million because of a terrible film. The Gate was Stephen Dorff's feature film debut. However, the role of Glenn almost went to Joshua John Miller. Lewis Tripp, who played Terry, unfortunately did not do much in his acting career, other than the sequel to this film. Krista Denton, who played Glenn's sister Al, also had a very limited career after this film. Honestly, after Stephen Dorff, who had quite the career after this film, it's really only the two actresses who played the Lee sisters, Jennifer Irwin and Kelly Rowan, that actually had a career after this movie. The small demonic minions in this film are actually played by actors in rubber suits, and the actual scenes were shot in a forced perspective. The logo on the back of Terry's jacket is for a band called the Killer Dwarfs, which was an actual heavy metal band from Toronto, Ontario. Now, the record that Terry has in the film for the band Sacrifix was not a real record. However, the band that he's hearing the music of was a band called Sacrifice, and they were a Canadian thrash metal band. When the Lee sisters are reading passages from the Bible, the particular ones they're reading are from Psalms, but a good majority of it was just made up. In late 2009, early 2010, Alex Winter, the guy who played Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, was planning on directing a remake of this film, which is not surprising because if you actually look at his catalog, he's actually directed quite a few things. Now, the movie was going to be called The Gate 3D. It would have had a similar plot to this first film, but apparently the main character would have been changed to someone named Miles, but the best friend still would have been called Terry. The hope was that they would actually be able to turn this into an actual jumping point for a franchise. So when it comes to the film The Gate, I love this movie. It's definitely one of the 80s horror movies that I grew up on. It's not an amazing movie, but it is still very entertaining. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, if you like this film, other movies I would recommend are Night of the Demons and Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, every time Glenn mentions Angus the dog's age, what age does he say he is? As Glenn is apparently always counting in dog years, he says that Angus is 97. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there is a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.